What's the dumbest idea you had as a child? I taped 2 skateboards on either side of a chair and rode it down a hill. IDK how I didn't break anything. I believed that fuzz turned into bugs. When a breeze blows a piece of fuzz, it looks just like a bug running, at least to my 4-year-old mind it did. I also wanted to be a spy when I grew up and believed the best way to practice those skills would be looking through the neighbor's windows. However, I was too nervous that I would get caught, so I just tried to see in from the alley. I'm surprised my parents didn't receive multiple phone calls that I was just standing in the middle of the alley for long periods of time. I thought my parents never had sex and bet a classmate on it for honor. Yeah, I have no honor anymore. Jumped off the top of the couch in an attempt to fly multiple times, not the cushioned side either. That after my parents died, I was going to take out all the furniture in their room and fill it up with coins change and swim around in it like Scrooge did on DuckTales 11. Yo, me was weird. My parents threatened to ground me. And for some reason in my imagination, being grounded meant that a giant robot comes to your house and pounds you onto the ground like a nail into a board. I was like 3. Like I pictured an 8-foot tall grey humanoid robot coming to our front door and my parents just pointing to me and the robot pounding me into the ground in one hit. Like this was just a door-to-door service the robot provided parents. This lead to another weird one. A weird fear that a giant robot was looking for me, but he was walking from very far away. I would have nightmares about it for a few years. Until I was like 6 or 7. I would lay in bed at night and I would plug my ears and I could hear my heartbeat. And I imagined that the sound of my heart was the footsteps of this giant robot walking across the continent to find me. And we moved around a lot when I was a kid. And I was always like, yes, he has to start over walking to find me, so I'm safe for a while. Like us moving is what saved me from this robot. I feel like it was partly just my imagination and me being silly, and maybe 50% an actual fear. I dunno. I put glue on my hands to crawl on walls like Spider-Man. Not as kid, but I found a chicken fillet that had sort of a circuit shape, so I took a photo of it hoping to make it a real thing. My dumbest idea was to stay out during a tornado. I used to live in Louisiana. I can't remember if it was a drill or real, but me and my older brother heard a giant rumble and we both thought it was a huge barrel and thought nothing of it, and we stayed outside and we finally went inside after 5 minutes and could not find our mom or dad, and we looked everywhere and eventually found them in the basement. I was 3 or 4, so I did not know what was going on. I took an egg from a pack of 6. Put it under my pillow and thought I could hatch a chick as a pet. Also there was a time I thought I could take my left arm and grab hold of my right, then pull upwards and basically fly. Like if I pulled hard enough the upwards force would levitate me off the ground. I tried to do calculus, I'm still stuck. It's been 1 week. So, this one time, when I was 5 or 6 years old, I really wanted to make my own soap. Long story short, I had a plastic bag filled with water, because everything contains water I guess, soap, because it seemed obvious, grass, some random natural ingredient other than water, and gummy sweets, to add that almost transparent color. I'll let that shit sit in my windowsill for about 2 weeks. I'm sure my parents had fun cleaning that up. To become the manager of the NSA. Ha. The NSA are idiots. CIA rules. I kept thinking money was infinite. How stupid I was for not getting a job while I was younger and saving every penny. Maybe not an idea, cause I don't know what I was thinking, but one day when I was like 5 to 6 and I woke up, grabbed a pencil sharpener and walked downstairs. I then saw my parents eating and said hi. I then jumped on the counter, sat down next to the sink, put my finger in the sharpener and turned. When I pulled my finger out, it was bleeding profusely. The skin looked somewhat like someone peeling an orange with a knife in a spiral, and stopping halfway through. My parents then looked at each other and ran to me, leaving their food, and picked me up and asked if I was okay, and from what I remember I just said yes. What I don't know is how is my finger still fine today. In big cities there is always steam coming up from the sewer grates. honest to God thought it was steam from the pizza that Ninja Turtles were obviously eating just below the street. To be young and dumb. When I was younger there was a terrorist group that was going to different countries and killing Jewish people. Me being a Jewish 7-year-old assumed that they will come to my country and abduct all Jews, which thankfully never happened. So once they would come to my country they would kindly ask if I was a Jew, and I would say no. Because of course a terrorist is going to ask a 7-year-old nicely if she's a Jew or not. Not only that, I was in a country where almost everyone is Jewish. I wanted to dive into the deep end of the pool, but wanted to be sure I'd be able to catch the edge of the pool as soon as I dived to prevent me from drowning. Happened to me once before. Luckily my brother noticed and pulled me up. So my idea was to dive in facing away from the pool so I'd be able to grab the side of the swimming pool as soon as I jumped. I miscalculated and, as soon as I jumped, my front teeth hit the edge of the pool, causing them to chip and bleed a lot. It was a while before I went back to swimming classes. And my front 2 teeth are still slightly chipped because of this lol. I decided to drop some pennies in my mouth. I swallowed one. I was 6. Not a toddler. This will most likely be buried, but here goes. As a 6-year kiddo I was making a birthday card for my mum and was cutting the card using some fancy zigzag scissors. Fast forward 5 minutes, and I had cut my hair using them as I thought it would make my hair spiky, so I wouldn't have to use hair gel. I was 13, so I don't really know if that qualifies as kid, but yeah, this is a story when in the beginning of high school someone told me that if you look at a girl's lips when you talk to them, they will be automatically attracted to you. I thought yeah sure that should work, why not, so I proceeded to look at girls' lips when talking to them. It took a year until I realized that all the girls probably thought I was looking at their boobs. So now I have to lay awake at night and think about this, and worst thing is I still see most of them today. I mixed apple juice, milk, and water. I also drank it. Tried to use a plastic bag as a parachute. Jumped from 15 feet. Didn't end well. That if I threw rocks at a bird nest I could catch an egg and keep the chick as a pet. Knocked the nest down, broke the eggs, and cried for 5 hours because I had just killed birds. I had a plastic chain hanging from my ceiling beside my bed that some of my stuffed animals would hang on. I got the grand idea that I would take all my stuffed animals off it and swing on the chain like Tarzan. It was a grand idea to me as I was probably the lightest 34-year-old ever. So I carry out my idea and come crashing down to the floor and have to explain to my mom how I ripped the chain out of the ceiling, teacup hook and all. Got a good ass whipping for that. I was young, like 4 or 5. I set up traps in my backyard to try to capture a rabbit or an elephant. My traps hammering numerous nails pointy side up into the ground. I stepped on one of my traps and the nail almost went through my foot. No, I did not catch an elephant. Apparently at the time there were no wild elephants in Ohio, sadly there still are not. I jumped in a pool on the highest point on the ladder, hardly any water. I thought I broke my leg. When I saw road construction I figured they were just finishing up, and when that was done, there would be no more road construction, ever. I thought it would be cool to throw a glass Snapple bottle at my parents' garage and watch it break into pieces. I threw the bottle, bounces off the side of the garage, hits me square in the forehead and shatters everywhere. I still have a scare from that stupid idea. Watched a lot of action movies as an 80s kid. While still a kid, maybe early 90s, we had a cat that would jump and climb on us while we did dishes. Cue me doing dishes. Cat jumps from chair behind me onto back and climbs shirt to shoulder, where it lost its footing. Cause that's my luck, usually, and as it started slipping a claw or the second of may have caught some skin at my neck. Remind a lot of action movies in my history that a dumb kid assumes to be accurate, specifically here the cutting of throats causes death idea leads me to freak out about how long I've got left to live. Thought people older than me knew what was going on and that eventually I would too. Come to find out no one has a fucking clue. I loved Power Rangers, the very first season. I liked to practice the fighting moves. One day, I decided it would be a good idea to jump off the top of the couch and dropkick my brother in the face. BTW, I'm the youngest. I broke his nose. My mom picked me up by the back of my shirt and smacked the fuck out of my backside, and I was banned from watching Power Rangers. I had the idea that John Stamos from Full House absolutely adored me and watched me through the TV screen, so one time I stayed up until like 4 AM and I paused the TV right on his face and climbed on my dresser and made out with the still image of John Stamos. There was a period in my life where I used to shower without the curtains fully closed, so it would leak water out onto the bathroom floor. My mother got pretty annoyed and told me to close the curtains while I was showering. I was also deathly afraid of any authority figure, so I decided that I would now try my best to keep the curtains fully closed the next time I showered. Being the genius that I am, I found out that if you took a little bit of water and stuck it to the plastic liner, it would stick to the walls very well. And where would I get this water? Well, while I was showering, of course. Now imagine a 6-year-old kid with a shower running and taking some water into his hand and sticking it to the inside liner and making sure it stuck on the wall. The problem was I couldn't quite reach the top to fully close it because in my brain, it had to be fully sealed to ensure not a single water drop escaped. Utilizing the entirety of my brain power, I decided that I would jump while the water was running to seal the top. You could imagine how well that idea went. I eventually ended up slipping and hitting my chin on the bathtub floor. I didn't cry or anything though, just finished my shower, walked out, and told my mother that no water had escaped. She immediately gasped and asked me what the hell happened. I soon realized my chin was busted open, and I didn't even feel it because I was filled with adrenaline to tell her of my curtain sealing accomplishment. I still have the scar to this day. So, here not too long ago I had the brilliant idea to duct tape homemade rocket engines to a shopping cart, get inside a said rocket cart after I had lit the rocket fuses, and ride it down an old forest road. I wasn't hurt, but I did grey out. I now know why rockets aren't used for daily transportation. BTW, I did rig up a small steering system, just some sticks running to the back wheels, to brake to the side I wanted to go. It worked. Barely. Oh man. I was in grade school, probably 4th or 5th grade. I was sitting on the floor kneeling and writing my homework on a bench or something. A bunch of us were basically lined up to go to the bathroom. My buddy was standing up, joking with a mutual friend. I got it in my head that it would be funny to hold my pencil point side up on the bench so that when he sat down, he'd poke his butt. The way it went in my mind was, he'd sit down like a normal person, maybe get a light poke, he was wearing jeans, and we'd laugh. Well, that didn't happen. He finished his joke and flomped down on the bench, hard, without even looking where he was sitting. The pencil went straight through his jeans and impaled him right in the ass. Fortunately it wasn't serious. I said it was an accident. He went to the nurse, later joked about having a second butthole, but occasionally as an adult I flash back to that moment and realize how serious it could have been if, say, he'd been a few inches to the left and gotten a perforated rectum. I'm going pale just recalling it now. Ducking stupid child, me. Sorry Brian. When I was 12, I found a pack of matches on the ground while riding my bike with my best friend. Went home with them into the backyard, which had just been mowed by my brother after not being maintained for months, so there was a giant, dry pile of clippings in the corner. Decided that I would light a patch of it on fire and put it out. Rinse, repeat until I couldn't put it out anymore. I wonder how big it can get until I can't put it out. About 5 cycles of this later, and I can't put it out. I go to turn the hose on to put it out, and the other end of the hose is under the fire and the neighbors finally see the fire and jump over the fence and help to try and get it out. The fire could have caught the large tree in the backyard and then the house, but luckily it didn't get that far. Ended up having to go to counseling to make sure I wasn't a pyro and had to do 100 hours of community service. Not my brightest moment.